Happens to my business, if something happens to me for any business, it depends on the business entity structure. If something happens to you, there's different cases of if something happens to you. There's death, coma, mental incapacity. So there's a few other categories there. If you die and you are a sole proprietor, you don't have an LLC, you don't have a corporation, you're just operating as you. Maybe you have a fictitious business name, so you have a doing business as name that you're operating under, but it's just you. File Schedule C on your tax return every year. If you die, the business dies too. So the business is gone. And if you don't have anything set in place, your executors are going to be very unhappy with you because then they're going to have to go to the courts to get access to your business bank accounts and everything else associated with your business. And all of the big corporations that have lots of lawyers are not going to talk to them until they have court orders in hand saying, I'm the executor of so and so's estate, including the business that they were operating at that time. So that is the biggest issue that small business owners have, is they're just operating as themselves and they die. Who gets stuck with it? Their executor does. So that's what happens if you're a sole proprietor. Oh, if you are an LLC or a corporation, then what happens is based on the operating agreement or the LLC agreement or the articles of incorporation, that is what determines what then happens to your business. So if you are the sole owner and you don't have anything in there that says, oh, if something happens to me, my spouse takes over, my employees take over, my dog takes over. If you don't have anything in that operating agreement that lays out what happens, again, it defaults back to now the executor of your estate is in charge of trying to operate that business and getting court orders and things like that. If you do have those pieces in place, then they don't need court orders because they have that operating agreement or articles of incorporation to be able to do it and be able to follow those instructions. They can show that to whomever, say, okay, it says that the executor of my estate, here's so and so, they have been nominated as they're going to take over this business. If there's multiple owners, hopefully you're not all in the same bus at the same time that has gone off a cliff. But similar thing would happen here. You go to the operating agreement, you go to the articles of incorporation to figure out what happens in cause of one of the partners or owners dies, multiple partners or owners die at the same time, and you just kind of follow the decision tree from there. So a lot of times those kind of clauses will have right of first refusal, where the other owners can basically buy out the shares, the LLC membership interests from the basically the estate of the decedent owner, or they can put it on the open market and say, hey, we don't want to buy them, or we don't have the cash to buy them. You can go out and find someone else to buy yours. And we had our chance and we said no. So you can get basically sell it to whomever. It'll also have things like insurance policies. If there's multiple owners, you might get insurance policies say, hey, if someone dies, we want the business to be paying for an insurance policy all along that will have the cash then to buy out whoever passed away, so that the business doesn't have to put up all of the cash, or the people themselves don't have to find a chunk of cash. And then you just adjust those insurance policies as the business becomes more and more valuable to keep increasing those limits. So those are all the kind of things that can happen, but again, it takes a lot of planning typically on the front end, and most people go into business and don't do a lot of that planning and just say, oh, I'll worry about it when it happens to me. And if you're dead, there is not much you can then say at that point or try to figure out. And then you're leaving other people scrambling at that point. The other side of the coin is if you're not dead, you're in a coma, you're mentally incapacitated, whatever the case may be, you're still alive, then obviously the business in any of these cases is still alive, but you're still going to want to have those decisions in place. And then that's where personal estate planning comes into play, so that you can have people actually make decisions on your behalf. And in those, you want to make sure that if you do own businesses, that they absorb your decision-making rights in that business. They can sign checks, they can sign contracts, they can manage bank accounts, file tax returns, all those kind of things. Because again, if they don't have those powers, they're going to have to go to court to get them. That again, it's a great conversation to have with a lawyer. And if you want to bring together a business lawyer and an estate planning lawyer, that might be a good combination in those instances, because some of those pieces kind of flow across either one. They might not be a specialist in both. The business lawyer is going to be focused on the business side of things, and the estate lawyer is going to be focused on that. So having them get into the same room, again, it might cost you a couple $100 extra, but to have those discussions and make sure that both sides understand and are on the same page with all those different clauses makes a big difference.